3 days after Jake awakened Zaraketh, the sky above Kepler 442b filled with human ships. The emergency signal that Captain Harper had sent to Earth Fleet had traveled faster than anyone expected, and now a full diplomatic and military task force was descending on the alien ruins. Jake stood on the platform where he had first touched the Veltar Guardian, watching the massive vessels land with thunderous roars that shook the crystalline structures around them. Commander Kate Sullivan stepped out of the lead ship wearing the kind of expression that Jake had learned to fear from authority figures. She was tall and sharp-edged, with gray hair pulled back so tight it looked painful and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Behind her came a parade of scientists, diplomats, and soldiers, all walking with the kind of purposeful stride that meant they were here to take control of the situation. "Dr. Warren," Commander Sullivan said as she approached the archaeological team, "I need a full briefing on the alien contact situation immediately." Dr. Warren started to answer, but Zaraketh stepped forward from where she had been standing, among her awakened people. The Veltar Guardian moved with that same impossible grace Jake had noticed before, like she was floating just slightly above the ground instead of walking on it. "The briefing is unnecessary," Zaraketh said in her musical voice. "We have already chosen our human contact. All negotiations will be conducted through Jake Martinez." Commander Sullivan looked from Zaraketh to Jake, her expression shifting from professional courtesy to barely controlled irritation. "Mr. Martinez is a civilian archaeologist with no diplomatic training or security clearance. I'm sure you understand that we need to follow proper protocols for first contact situations." Zaraketh tilted her head in that way that made Jake's neck hurt to watch. "We do not recognize your protocols. We recognize only the one who carries the spark we require." Jake found himself being stared at by every human in the chamber, and he could feel his face turning red. "Look, maybe we could work something out. I mean, I don't really know anything about diplomacy, but if these guys want to talk to me, maybe that's a good thing." "It's not that simple," said Dr. Ryan Cooper, a thin man with nervous hands who had introduced himself as Earth's leading expert on xenobiology. "We need to establish formal contact procedures, cultural exchange protocols, technology sharing agreements. This is the most important moment in human history." Zaraketh looked at Dr. Cooper with what Jake was starting to recognize as polite disinterest. Around the chamber, other Veltar Guardians had awakened over the past 3 days, but Jake noticed that they all kept their distance from the humans except for Zaraketh. Whenever other humans tried to approach them, the Veltars simply moved away like water flowing around stones. "Your importance is noted, but irrelevant," Zaraketh said. "We have observed your species for many cycles through methods you do not yet understand. We know your leaders, your scientists, your warriors. They think in patterns we have seen before, patterns the Devourers can predict and counter." She walked over to Jake and placed her hand on his shoulder. "This one thinks in patterns we have never encountered. His mind creates order from chaos in ways that defy analysis. Through him, we can teach your species to become something the Devourers cannot consume." Commander Sullivan's patience was clearly wearing thin. "With all due respect, we're talking about defending Earth from an alien invasion. We need our best military minds working on this problem, not a comedian who pokes statues." Jake winced at the description, but Zaraketh's grip on his shoulder tightened protectively. "Your best military minds think like every other military mind that has fallen to the Devourers. They plan logical strategies against an enemy that consumes logic. They prepare for war against an enemy that feeds on preparation." She gestured to the walls of the chamber, which began displaying new images. Jake saw battle after battle, fleet after fleet of different alien races trying to fight the dark ships of the Devourers. Each time, the defending forces used textbook tactics, proper formations, logical strategies. Each time, they were completely destroyed. "Every Guardian species made the same mistake," Zaraketh continued. "They tried to become more perfect, more organized, more predictable in their quest to defeat chaos. But the Devourers are not chaos. They are the ultimate order, the final pattern that consumes all other patterns. Dr. Cooper was taking frantic notes while Amy Chun recorded everything with her equipment. So you're saying we need to fight order? With chaos? Not chaos, Zaraketh said. Control chaos. Organize randomness. The ability to be completely unpredictable while still achieving your goals. She looked at Jake again. Something humans do naturally, but have never recognized as a strength. Commander Sullivan crossed her arms. I'm not putting the defense of Earth in the hands of one archaeologist, no matter what you say about his brain. Patterns. Zaraketh's silver eyes flashed with something that might have been anger. Then perhaps you would prefer a demonstration. Before anyone could ask what she meant, 3 of the Veltar Guardians stepped forward. They were tall and imposing, with the same elegant features as Zaraketh, but carrying weapons that looked like they were made from crystallized light. Jake recognized the challenge immediately. A combat simulation, Zaraketh explained. Your best warriors against ours, using your standard tactics and equipment. Captain Harper stepped forward eagerly, followed by 2 other soldiers from the landing force. They were good fighters, Jake knew, trained in the latest combat techniques and armed with the most advanced weapons Earth could provide. The fight lasted exactly 37 seconds. The human soldiers moved with textbook precision, using proper formation and coordinate fire patterns. The Veltar Guardians simply anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and disabled all 3 humans without breaking a sweat. It was like watching someone play chess against a computer that could see 50 moves ahead. This is how the Devourers fight, Zaraketh said as the human soldiers picked themselves up off the ground, bruised but not seriously injured. They learn your patterns instantly and turn your own skills against you. She turned to Jake. Now, you try. Jake stared at her in horror. Me? I'm not a fighter. I've never even been in a real fight in my life. Exactly, Zaraketh said. You have no patterns for them to predict. Against his better judgment, Jake found himself standing in the center of the chamber, facing the 3 Veltar warriors. They moved into position with that same fluid grace, weapons ready, clearly expecting another easy victory. Jake did the only thing he could think of. He started making jokes. So 3 aliens walk into a bar, he said, backing away from the nearest warrior while gesturing wildly with his hands. And the bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve your kind here." The Veltar warrior paused, clearly confused by this unexpected response. Jake kept talking, moving in seemingly random directions while continuing his rambling story. So the first alien says, "That's discrimination." The second alien says, "We should call a lawyer." But the third alien, the smart one, he says, "Wait a minute, this isn't a bar. This is a spaceship." The warriors were clearly struggling to predict Jake's movements now. He wasn't following any combat doctrine they could recognize, wasn't moving in any pattern that made tactical sense. He was just stumbling around the chamber telling a terrible joke while occasionally throwing pieces of equipment in random directions. And that's when they realized, Jake continued, diving behind a piece of scanning equipment, as one of the warriors fired a training beam where he had been standing. They weren't in a bar at all. They were in the punchline. The simulation ended when Jake accidentally tripped over his own feet and fell backward into one of the warriors, knocking them both to the ground. It wasn't exactly a victory, but it wasn't a defeat either. The Veltar had failed to quickly disable him like they had the trained soldiers. Zaraketh was smiling broadly as she helped Jake to his feet. "Perfect," she said. "Completely unpredictable, tactically nonsensical, and somehow effective despite being ridiculous." Commander Sullivan was staring at Jake like he had just grown a second head. That wasn't fighting. That was just chaos. Exactly, Zaraketh said. And that is why your species might actually survive what is coming. Zaraketh released Jake's wrist and stepped back, but her silver eyes never left his face. The chamber around them hummed with new energy as more of the tall figures began to wake up, their eyes opening like stars appearing in a dark sky. Jake rubbed his wrist where she had held him, surprised to find that her grip hadn't left any marks despite how strong it had felt. Captain Harper was shouting into his radio, calling for backup and emergency evacuation, but Dr. Warren stepped forward, with her hands raised in what she hoped was a peaceful gesture. "I'm Dr. Lisa Warren from Earth," she said in a slow, clear voice. "We come in peace and mean no harm to you or your people." Zaraketh tilted her head at an angle that would have been impossible for a human neck, studying Dr. Warren with curiosity but no real interest. "Your words are kind, knowledge keeper, but they are not needed. We have been watching your species through the cosmic web for many cycles. We know you mean no harm because you cannot truly harm us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine at those words, but Zaraketh's attention was already back on him. "You, however, are different. You possess something we have not seen in eons. What exactly have you been watching?" Amy Chun asked, her scanner still beeping wildly as she tried to make sense of the readings. "And how long have you been here?" Zaraketh gestured to the other figures around the chamber, most of whom were now awake but still standing perfectly, still in their positions. "We are Veltar, the guardians of this sector of space. We have protected the young races from the darkness between stars for longer than your sun has existed." She began walking around Jake in a slow circle, like a predator studying prey, but her expression was more curious than threatening. "When the great threat became too powerful for us to face alone, we entered the long sleep to wait for a species worthy of joining our eternal watch." "What threat?" Dr. Warren asked, pulling out her recording equipment. "What are you protecting us from?" "The Devourers," Zaraketh said, and her voice became cold as winter wind. "The hunger that consumes worlds, the shadow that turns light to ash. They were once like us, guardians who protected life, but they chose a different path. They began consuming the very civilizations they were meant to protect, growing stronger with each world they destroyed." Jake swallowed hard. "And you think humans can help fight these things?" Zaraketh stopped circling and stood directly in front of him again. "Not humans," she said. Your mind carries the pattern we have been seeking. The chaos that creates order, the fear that becomes courage, the small spark that can ignite a star." Around the chamber, the other Veltar were beginning to move from their positions, but Jake noticed that they all kept their distance from the human team. Only Zaraketh seemed willing to interact with them directly. "I don't understand," Jake said. "What's so special about my mind? I'm just a guy who digs up old stuff and makes bad jokes." Zaraketh reached out and placed her palm against Jake's forehead. Her skin was cool and smooth, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation as if electricity was flowing between them. Her silver eyes widened in surprise, then delight. "Extraordinary," she whispered. "Your neural patterns are unlike anything we have encountered. Most species develop in straight lines, becoming more ordered and predictable as they advance. But humans, you grow more complex, more chaotic, more beautifully unpredictable with each generation." Dr. Warren stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "Are you reading his mind?" "Not reading," Zaraketh said, her hand still on Jake's forehead. "Tasting. Every species has a unique flavor to their thoughts. Most are like simple melodies, pleasant but predictable. Human thoughts are like a symphony played by an orchestra, where every musician is playing a different song, yet somehow it all creates perfect harmony." She removed her hand, and Jake staggered slightly, feeling dizzy. The Devourers defeat other species by learning their patterns and turning their own strengths against them. They cannot be fought with logic or order because they consume logic and order. They can only be defeated by something they cannot understand or predict. Amy Chun was frantically taking notes while her equipment recorded everything. "So you used to fight these Devourers using our chaos?" "Not you," Zaraketh said again, pointing at Jake. "Him. He carries the strongest pattern we have detected. Through him, we can teach your species to harness the chaos that flows in your blood. Captain Harper finally stopped shouting into his radio and approached the group with his weapon lowered but ready. With respect, ma'am, we're not handing over one of our people to aliens we just met, no matter how friendly you seem. Zara Keth looked at Harper with something that might have been amusement. You misunderstand, warrior. We do not wish to take him from you. We wish to learn from him and through him, from all humans. Your species may be our last hope to stop the Devourers from consuming this galaxy as they have consumed so many others. She gestured to the chamber around them, and suddenly the walls began showing images like a three-dimensional movie. Jake saw vast fleets of dark ships moving between stars, entire worlds being stripped of life, civilizations that had stood for millions of years crumbling to dust in moments. 17 galaxy clusters have fallen to their hunger, Zaraketh said as the images continued to play. Billions of species, trillions of individual lives, all consumed to feed their endless appetite. We Guardians have fought them for eons, but our ordered tactics and predictable strategies always fail in the end. The images changed to show the Veltard themselves in their prime, tall and elegant beings fighting desperate battles against creatures that looked like living darkness with too many teeth and eyes. Jake watched civilizations rise and fall in moments, saw the Guardians themselves falling one by one to an enemy that seemed to learn from every defeat. But now, Zaraketh said, turning back to Jake with hope shining in her silver eyes, we have found something new, something the Devourers have never faced before. A species that fights dirty, Jake said, understanding beginning to dawn on him. A species that doesn't follow the rules. A species that makes its own rules, Zaraketh agreed. A species that can look at an impossible situation and find a way to laugh at it. Dr. Warren was still recording everything, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. How long do we have before these Devourers find us? Zaraketh was quiet for a long moment, and the images on the walls faded away. They already know about you. Your expansion into space, your colonies on distant worlds, your radio signals spreading across the cosmos. You have been singing your curl existence to the universe for decades. They are coming. How long? Captain Harper demanded. Their advanced scouts entered your system 3 days ago, Zaraketh said quietly. The main fleet will arrive within one of your months. Jake felt his knees go weak. 1 month? That's not enough time to prepare for an invasion. Zaraketh smiled again, but this time it was fierce and full of teeth. It is enough time to wake the sleeping Guardians. Enough time to begin your training. Enough time to teach your species that sometimes the best way to win a war is to refuse. To fight it the way your enemy expects. She looked around at all the humans, but her gaze settled on Jake once more. The question is not whether you have enough time. The question is whether you have enough courage to become something the universe has never seen before. Jake thought about Earth, about all the people who had no idea that monsters from beyond the stars were coming to destroy everything they had ever known. Then he thought about his sister back home, about his parents, about every human who deserved a chance to live and love and make bad jokes. When do we start? He asked. The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Jake Martinez's boots as he stepped out of the landing shuttle. The planet's twin suns cast strange shadows across the landscape, making everything look like it was painted in shades of copper and gold. Jake wiped the sweat from his forehead and grinned at his teammates who were already unloading equipment from the shuttle. Welcome to paradise, Jake said with a laugh, gesturing at the barren rocks and twisted metal structures that jutted out from the ground like broken teeth. Dr. Lisa Warren shot him a look that could have melted steel, but Jake just shrugged. He had been making jokes since they left Earth 6 months ago, and he wasn't about to stop now. The ruins stretched out before them, like a city from a fever dream. Massive crystalline spires twisted up toward the sky, their surfaces catching the light and throwing rainbows across the dusty ground. Between the towers, geometric structures formed patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Everything was made from the same strange material that seemed to shift between transparent and solid depending on the angle. "Stay close to the group," Captain Steve Harper called out, his hand resting on the plasma rifle at his side. The military escort had been nervous since they entered this system, and Jake couldn't blame him. The ruins were beautiful, but they felt wrong somehow, like they had been built by minds that thought in ways humans never could. Amy Chin was already setting up her scanning equipment, the small devices humming as they took readings of the alien architecture. "The energy signatures are off the charts," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "Whatever powered this place, it's still active after who knows how many years." Jake shouldered his pack and followed the team toward the largest structure, a massive dome that rose from the center of the ruins like a crystal mountain. The entrance was a perfect circle that seemed to have been carved from a single piece of the strange material. As they got closer, Jake could see that the walls were covered in symbols that moved and shifted when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Optical illusion," Dr. Warren said when Jake mentioned it, but her voice didn't sound convinced. She had been studying alien ruins for 15 years, and Jake had never seen her this unsettled before. The inside of the dome was even stranger than the outside. The walls curved up and up until they disappeared into darkness, and the floors made of the same shifting material as everything else. But what made Jake stop and stare was what filled the center of the chamber. Dozens of figures stood in perfect rows, each one frozen in place like statues in a museum. They were tall, much taller than humans, with long limbs and faces that were almost familiar, but not quite right. Their skin had a pale blue tint, and intricate patterns covered their arms and faces like tattoos that had been carved from light itself. "My God," Dr. Warren whispered, pulling out her camera and starting to take pictures. "They're perfectly preserved. The detail is incredible." Jake walked closer to the nearest figure, a male with broad shoulders and a stern expression. The statue's eyes were closed, but Jake could swear he saw the chest rising and falling slightly, as if the figure was breathing. He reached out to touch the smooth surface of the statue's arm, then pulled his hand back when Captain Harper cleared his throat loudly. "Don't touch anything," the captain said. "We don't know if they're safe." But Jake was already moving deeper into the chamber, drawn by something he couldn't explain. In the very center of the room stood a figure that was different from all the others. Where the other statues were arranged in neat rows like soldiers, this one stood alone on a raised platform. It was female, with delicate features and long hair that seemed to flow even though there was no wind in the chamber. The patterns on her skin were more complex than the others, spiraling around her arms and across her chest in designs that seemed to tell a story. Her face was peaceful, almost smiling, and Jake found himself thinking that she looked kind, which was a strange thing to think about a statue. "Jake, get back here," Dr. Warren called, but Jake barely heard her. He was standing right in front of the female figure now, close enough to see the individual lines and the patterns on her skin. Up close, he could see that her lips had a slight blue tint, and her hair wasn't quite the right texture for human hair. "You know what I think," Jake said, turning back to his teammates with a grin. "I think these aren't statues at all. I think there's some kind of suspended animation system." Captain Harper started walking toward him, his expression grim. "Martinez, step away from the artifact." "Come on, Harper," Jake said, turning back to the figure. "Look at her. She's beautiful, peaceful. If these guys wanted to hurt us, would they really make their warriors look this serene?" Amy Chun was scanning the female figure with her equipment, and her readings were going crazy. "Jake, you need to see this. The energy levels around that specific figure are completely different from the others. It's like she's some kind of central hub. See?" Jake said, feeling vindicated. "She's special." Without thinking, he reached out and gently poked the figure's chest, right over where her heart would be if she was human. "Hello in there. Anybody home?" The reaction was instant and terrifying. The figure's eyes snapped open, revealing irises that shone like liquid silver. Her hand moved faster than Jake could follow, wrapping around his wrist with a grip that was firm but surprisingly gentle. Jake tried to pull away, but the figure held him in place with strength that seemed effortless. "Finally," the figure said, her voice like music played on instruments Jake had never heard before. She spoke in perfect English, though her accent was unlike anything from Earth. "A worthy soul has awakened us." Jake stared into those silver eyes and felt his heart hammering in his chest. Behind him, he could hear Captain Harper shouting orders and the sound of weapons being drawn. But all of that seemed very far away. The figure was looking at him like she could see right through him, and Jake had the strangest feeling that she liked what she saw. Jake said, his voice coming out as barely a whisper. "Hi there." The figure smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. "Hello, little guardian. My name is Zaraketh, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet your kind." "My kind?" Jake managed to ask. "Humans," Zaraketh said, her grip on his wrist loosening but not releasing. "The first species in over 1,000,000 years to possess. The spark we have been waiting for." Around the chamber, other figures were beginning to stir. Eyes opened here and there, and Jake could hear the sound of movement as ancient limbs began to stretch and flex. But none of them moved from their positions. They all seemed to be waiting for something. "The spark?" Jake asked, though he was pretty sure he didn't want to know the answer. Zaraketh's smile grew wider, and Jake saw that her teeth were just slightly too sharp to be human. "The spark of defiance, little one. The courage to touch what others fear. To laugh in the face of the unknown. Your people call it many things, but we know it for what it truly is." She leaned closer, and Jake caught a scent like ozone and starlight. "It is hope," she whispered, "and we are going to need all of it." After 3 days of learning about human household technology, Jake decided it was time to take Zara outside the residential facility to see more of human society. He found her in her room, carefully folding her newly cleaned clothes with the precise movements of someone who still didn't fully trust the laundry process. "Ready for a field trip, Zara?" Jake asked cheerfully. "I thought we could visit the city center, so you can see how humans live in larger groups." Zara's skin shifted to a nervous yellow color. "We will be leaving the safety of this controlled environment. The city is perfectly safe," Jake assured her. "And you'll get to see human technology in action on a bigger scale. We'll take the elevator down to the ground floor and then walk around the downtown area." "Elevator?" Zara repeated the unfamiliar word. "This is another form of human transportation device. It's a small room that moves up and down between floors," Jake explained. "Much easier than climbing stairs when you're going to high floors." They walked to the elevator bank at the end of the hallway, where 3 sets of metal doors waited. Jake pressed the down button, and they heard mechanical sounds from behind the walls. As one of the elevators approached their floor, the transportation chamber is responding to your summons, Zara observed, her skin showing cautious orange patches. "How does it know which direction you wish to travel?" "The button tells it whether you want to go up or down," Jake said. "Then you get inside, and press the button for the floor you want." A soft chime sounded, and the middle elevator doors slid open to reveal a small square room with mirrored walls and a panel of numbered buttons. Zara stared into the elevator with growing alarm. "You expect me to enter that compression chamber?" she asked, backing away from the open doors. "It's not a compression chamber. It's just a small room," Jake said. "Look, there are people inside buildings all over the city using elevators every day. They're completely safe. But it is a sealed container designed to move through vertical shafts," Zara pointed out. "If the lifting mechanism fails, the occupants would fall to their deaths." "Elevators have multiple safety systems," Jake explained. "Cables, emergency brakes, backup power. The chance of falling is almost zero." The elevator doors started to close since no one had entered. Jake quickly pressed the button again to call another one. "Come on, Zara. I'll be right there with you. We'll just go down 5 floors. 5 floors? Zara's skin flashed bright red. That is a significant distance to fall if the safety systems malfunction. Another elevator arrived and the doors opened. This one was empty, which somehow made it seem even more threatening to Zara. The small space looked like a metal box designed to trap whatever entered it. I will try to be brave, Zara said finally. But if this is a human test of courage, I want it noted that my species does not naturally navigate vertical transportation systems. Jake stepped into the elevator first and held the door open. See? I'm inside and nothing bad is happening. Just step in next to me. Zara approached the elevator like she was entering a predator's den. She extended 1 foot across the threshold, then quickly pulled it back. The floor inside the chamber is different from the hallway floor. This suggests it is designed to move. That's because it is designed to move, Jake said patiently. The whole elevator car moves up and down. That's how it works. After several more minutes of encouragement, Zara finally stepped into the elevator. She immediately pressed herself against the back wall and gripped the handrail with all 4 of her arms. Her skin was bright red, with terror patches of yellow around her eyes. Now I just press the button for the ground floor, Jake said, reaching toward the control panel. Wait, Zara said urgently. Should I not be prepared for the movement? There's safety procedures I should follow? Just stand normally and hold the rail if you want, Jake said. The movement is very gentle. Jake pressed the button marked G and the elevator doors closed with a soft thud. Zara let out a small squeak of fear as they were sealed inside the metal box. Then the elevator began its descent and she felt the floor dropping beneath her feet. We are falling, she whispered. The chamber is descending through the vertical shaft just as I predicted. We're not falling. We're being lowered in a controlled way, Jake corrected. There's a big difference. I can feel the gravitational forces acting on my body, Zara said, her voice tight with panic. If the control systems fail now, we will. Accelerate downward until we impact the bottom of the shaft. The elevator is working perfectly, Jake said calmly. We'll be at the bottom in just a few more seconds. The elevator slowed and came to a gentle stop. The doors opened to reveal the building's lobby with its marble floors and large windows showing the city street outside. Zara remained pressed against the back wall, unwilling to move. We have arrived safely, she said with amazement. The vertical transportation system functioned as designed. See? Nothing to worry about, Jake said. Come on, let's go explore. The city. It took some coaxing to get Zara to lead the elevator, but eventually she stepped into the lobby. Her skin was slowly returning to normal colors as she realized they had survived the experience. They walked outside into the busy city street where humans moved in all directions, entering and exiting buildings, driving vehicles, and going about their daily activities. Zara watched everything with fascination, making notes on her recording device. Your species coordinates the movement of large populations very efficiently, she observed. The traffic patterns appear to be self-organizing rather than centrally controlled. Most of it is just people following basic rules and using common sense, Jake said. Though we do have traffic lights and signs to help organize vehicle movement. They walked for several blocks, with Jake pointing out various aspects of human city life. Zara was particularly interested in the way humans use their technology to accomplish everyday tasks. She watched people using smartphones, ATM machines, and other devices with the same intense focus she had shown the washing machine. Your entire population carries personal communication devices, she noted. This suggests a highly connected society with real-time information sharing capabilities. Pretty much everyone has a phone these days, Jake agreed. It makes life a lot easier. When lunchtime arrived, Jake suggested they eat at a small restaurant he knew. The place was busy with the noon crowd, and they had to wait a few minutes for a table. While they waited, Zara watched the kitchen staff preparing food through a service window. The food preparation workers are using heat generation devices, she observed. And what appears to be controlled flame sources? Those are just stoves. And grills, Jake said. Standard cooking equipment. They were seated at a small table near the kitchen, which gave Zara an excellent view of the food preparation process. She watched with growing amazement as the cook used various appliances to heat, mix, and transform raw ingredients into finished meals. That device, she pointed to a microwave that a worker was using to reheat something. It appeared to cook food using invisible energy. There was no visible heat source, but the food emerged hot. That's a microwave, Jake explained. It uses electromagnetic radiation to heat food from the inside. Electromagnetic radiation for food preparation. Zara repeated slowly. Your species uses directed energy weapons for cooking. They're not weapons, Zara. Microwaves are just a convenient way to heat food quickly. But you are bombarding organic matter with high-frequency radiation, Zara insisted. On my world, such technology would only be used in industrial applications or for defensive purposes. Humans have been using microwaves safely for decades, Jake said. The radiation is contained inside the machine, and it only affects water molecules in the food. A server approached their table with a plate of food that had obviously been reheated. In the microwave. The plate was hot and steam rose from the food, but the server handled it casually with just a simple cloth to protect her hands. The food handler shows no fear of the radiation-treated meal, Zara whispered to Jake. Either your species has natural immunity to electromagnetic effects, or you have developed cultural acceptance of daily radiation exposure. We just know it's safe, Jake said. Scientists have tested it thoroughly. Your entire population participates. In regular consumption of radiation-modified food, Zara said, making detailed notes. This explains much about human durability and adaptation capabilities. Jake sighed and looked at their server, who was now using the microwave to heat another customer's meal. I think we're going to need a lot more time to explain human technology. To you, Zara? Indeed, Zara agreed, watching the microwave with fascination. Your people's casual use of advanced physics for everyday tasks continues to amaze me. 2 days after the kitchen incident, Zara had grown more comfortable with some basic human technology, but she still approached every new device with extreme caution. Jake found her that morning sitting cross-legged on her bed, examining her dirty clothes with obvious distress. Her skin showed patches of worried yellow mixed with embarrassed pink. What's wrong, Zara? Jake asked as he entered her room. Human Jake, I have encountered a problem that I do not know how to solve, she said, holding up her shirt. My protective coverings have become soiled during my learning experiences with your water systems. On my world, we would simply place them in a bio-cleaning pod where helpful organisms will consume the dirt and refresh the fabric. But I see no living systems here for this purpose. Jake looked at her dirty clothes and realized he had completely forgotten to explain laundry. To her, oh, that's easy to fix. We have machines that clean clothes. Let me show you the laundry room. Machines that clean fabric? Zara's skin shifted to interested green. More mechanical solutions to replace biological functions? Exactly, Jake said. Grab your dirty clothes and I'll show you how it works. They walked down the hallway to a room filled with large white machines lined up against the walls. Some were top-loading boxes and others had glass doors on the front. Several were currently running with rhythmic thumping and sloshing sounds that made Zara stop at the doorway. The cleaning machines are currently active, she observed nervously. They sound like they are engaged in violent agitation processes. That's just the sound of clothes and water moving around inside, Jake explained. It's how they get the dirt out. Come on, I'll show you one that's not running. Jake led her to an empty front-loading washing machine and opened the large glass door. Inside was a metal drum with holes punched all around it. You put your dirty clothes in here, add soap, select the right settings, and the machine does the rest. Zara peered into the washing machine with fascination. The clothes go into this metal container, and somehow emerge clean. Right, water comes in. The drum spins to move everything around. Soap removes the dirt. Then the dirty water drains out and clean water rinses everything, Jake explained. After that, the machine spins really fast to remove most of the water. The container rotates at high speed. Zara's eyes widen. What prevents the fabric from being destroyed by the centrifugal forces? The clothes are designed to handle it, Jake said. Human fabrics are pretty tough. Watch, I'll start a load so you can see how it works. Jake loaded Zara's dirty clothes into the machine along with some of his own. He added detergent and selected a gentle cycle, then pressed the start button. The machine began filling with water, and Zara watched through the glass door with intense concentration. Water is entering the container, she reported. Now the clothes are beginning to float in the liquid solution. That's the soap and water mixing together, Jake said. The soap breaks down dirt and oils so the water can wash them away. Suddenly the drum began to rotate slowly, and the clothes started tumbling through the water. Zara gasped and pressed her face against the glass door, get a better view. The clothes are moving in a controlled pattern, she said with amazement. They appear and disappear from view as they rotate through the liquid medium. Yep, that's how it gets them clean, Jake said. The movement helps the soap reach every part of the fabric. Zara watched for several more minutes as the washing cycle continued. Her skin gradually changed from nervous orange to fascinated blue-green. This is actually quite mesmerizing, she admitted. The pattern of movement has an almost hypnotic quality. I'll leave you to watch the rest of the cycle, Jake said. It takes about 40 minutes total. When it's done, we'll move the clothes to a dryer, which uses hot air to remove the remaining water. There is an additional machine for the drying process? Zara asked without taking her eyes off the washing machine. Right next to this one, Jake pointed to the dryer. I'll be back in a while to show you how that works. After Jake left, Zara continued watching the washing machine with growing fascination. The way the clothes moved through the water seemed almost like a dance. They would disappear into the depths of the drum and then reappear moments later in completely different positions. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. As she watched, Zara began to develop a theory about what she was witnessing. On her world, the only technology that could make objects disappear and reappear was teleportation equipment used for moving goods between distant locations. The washing machine seemed to be doing something similar with the clothes. When the wash cycle ended and the rinse cycle began, Zara saw fresh water entering the drum and the soapy water draining away. This confirmed her suspicions. The machine was clearly breaking down the clothes into their component molecules, removing the dirt at a molecular level, and then reconstructing the clean versions. She pulled out her recording device and began making detailed notes. Human clothing purification system appears to use matter transportation technology. Items are dissolved in the liquid medium. Impurities are extracted through unknown filtration process. Then objects are reconstructed in purified state. The glass view import allows operators to monitor the transportation process. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that she was watching advanced matter manipulation technology disguised as simple cleaning equipment. Humans were clearly far more technologically advanced than they appeared. They had managed to create casual-use teleportation devices for household chores. When the washing machine finally stopped, Zara heard a beeping sound and saw that the door had unlocked. She opened it carefully and reached inside to touch her clothes. They were soaking wet, but definitely cleaner than before. More importantly, they were still intact and recognizable as the same garments she had put in. Remarkable, she whispered. The molecular reconstruction process maintains perfect structural integrity. She carefully lifted her wet shirt and examined it closely. Every fiber appeared to be exactly as it was before, just cleaner. The precision required for such matter manipulation was beyond anything her people had achieved. Jake returned just as Zara was conducting her detailed examination of the washed clothes. How did it go? He asked. Are you impressed with human laundry technology? Human Jake, I must ask you directly, Zara said seriously. Is this washing machine actually a matter transportation device? Jake blinked in confusion. What? No, it's just a washing machine. It cleans clothes with soap and water. But I observed the clothes disappearing and reappearing in different configurations, Zara insisted. And they emerged from the process in a molecularly purified state. This suggests teleportation technology with integrated contamination filtering. Zara, the clothes didn't disappear, Jake said patiently. They just moved around inside the drum. You could see them the whole time through the glass door. The viewing portal allows monitoring of the transportation process, Zara replied. I documented the entire procedure. The clothes clearly underwent matter dissolution and reconstruction. Jake realized that Zara had completely misunderstood what she was seeing. The clothes never disappeared, Zara. They just tumbled around in the water. It's like when you stir soup in a pot, and the vegetables move around, but they're still the same vegetables. Zara considered this explanation while examining her wet clothes again. You're saying this is purely mechanical agitation rather than molecular transportation? Exactly. No teleportation involved. Just spinning, water, and soap, Jake said. Now let's put these in the dryer so you can have dry, clean clothes. There is truly no matter dissolution occurring in this process, Zara asked one more time. None whatsoever, Jake confirmed. Zara's skin shifted to a disappointed gray color. I was hoping your species had developed household teleportation technology. That would have been quite impressive. Sorry to disappoint you, Jake said with a smile, but wait until you see how the dryer works. You might find that interesting too. Does the drying machine also avoid using advanced physics? Zara asked hopefully. Just hot air and tumbling, Jake said. Nothing more exciting than that. Zara sighed, her skin showing resigned acceptance. Human technology continues to be simultaneously more and less advanced than I expect.